the 2000 film Zuzu, a young boy flees war-torn Beirut to live with his grandparents in Sweden after his immediate family is killed by an explosion. His journey is defined by magical realism, heartbreak, and the realization that loving those around you is the best way to honor those you've lost. It's a beautiful movie made by an incredibly passionate man, Josef Fares. You might know him as just the the Oscars guy from the Game Awards, but Josef is an incredible advocate for innovation in the games industry. And with It Takes Two, Josef and Hazelight expand on themes that are present in all of Josef's previous work. The result is a celebration of games as a medium, and also something that reinforces the simple joy of the human connection.
Hey everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. It's Game of the Year time. 2021 was wild, but somehow we received a ton of great games, all things considered. One of my favorites is the one I'm talking about today, It Takes Two. Now, I was lucky enough to play a few hours of this game with its creator, Josef Fares, before the game came out earlier this year. In fact, way before it came out. It just so happens that not only did It Takes Two clean house at the Game Awards a couple days ago, it won Game of the Year. Completing It Takes Two after meeting Josef has been an utterly inspirational experience for me, and beyond that, the game is just a blast. So grab your partner, or a friend, or some rando off the street, and join me as I complete It Takes Two.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner! Game over. Wake up! Last one standing wins. K.O.
So when did this become better than this? It's strange to even say, but there are people who watch the show who don't know the joy of split-screen multiplayer. These days, when most people think of multiplayer, they think of playing online in a free-to-play deathmatch, where sometimes the only interaction with a friend is through seeing their gamer tag, or being screamed at to focus on the objective. But to me, some of my favorite multiplayer memories are tied up with rubbing elbows with my brother, or my best friend, or my partner sharing a screen. Working together to accomplish something simply feels good, whether online or in person. Experiencing novelty, something totally new with a pal, is a core design ethos for Hazelight Studio and its founder. Looking at Josef's games released over the past few years, it is easy to notice a pattern. 2013's Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons spins a compelling fantasy tale and also features a completely unique control scheme. 2018's A Way Out tells not only a classic prison escape story, it does so in a revolutionary way, basically asking players to embody roles in an interactive movie. It Takes Two blends these two games together to create an action platformer that can only be completed with another person, with split-screen couch co-op or online. No AI companions here, folks. Just me, a partner, and our combined wits. Josef is incredibly passionate about how story and gameplay interact, and that is evident everywhere in It Takes Two. This game is designed from the ground up to feature two players working together to accomplish their goals, so the plot naturally does so as well. Cody and May are a couple in the process of splitting up. A painful divorce is in the works, and their daughter Rose is absolutely devastated. Rose makes a wish, and with the help of a magical book of love, her parents find themselves trapped inside these dolls. The only way to get back into their bodies is by working together, but their personal issues affect everything they encounter. Now, I've always loved how different developers interpret how story and gameplay can interact with each other. In It Takes Two, the two concepts are inextricable. The story can only progress when players are totally in sync, even if the characters are constantly at odds. Cody and May certainly have chemistry, but it is easy to see why their marriage is on the rocks. Josef calls this game a rom-com game, and it totally earns that distinction. When Hazelight was working on this game, Josef wondered why no other studios were making games that used this concept. So he went ahead and with his team did it themselves. You would think completing a game like this might be difficult because of server issues, but I played this locally with my girlfriend for a bit, and then I played the rest of the game with my editor, Pat. And we would have played this entire game remotely on our PS5s with no problems whatsoever. It Takes Two is a 3D platformer, so if you know me, you know I was basically in heaven from the moment I started completing it. Players control either Cody or May, and progression is simple. Make it from one end of a level to the other. One twist is that there are new mechanics to master in almost every one of the 9 chapters. It's an incredible accomplishment that in nearly every level, we had to learn how to do something new and cool to get where we needed to go. This might sound confusing, but everything is incredibly intuitive, even for people who haven't played a ton of games before. It feels very easy to learn, very pick up and play. One of Hazelight's goals was to make a game that could be satisfying for gamers new and old, and the fact that the controls are simple help them accomplish that goal. Even with all the different mechanics being thrown around, players never have to keep more than a handful of concepts in mind at any given moment. Truthfully, it feels like this game was designed for me and a friend to complete. A 3D platformer that I have to complete with another person? I know I can sometimes sound like a broken record, spiraling into sadness about forcing myself to do multiple playthroughs of a massive RPG for no reason, but hey, it's the end of an incredibly long year, one that I've worked really hard during, and I deserve a treat. So if the universe throws me a bone with an easy completion experience like It Takes Two, I'll take it. It Takes Two is a masterclass of a studio planting a flag in the sand and saying, this is what we stand for. Every element of how the game is presented ties back into the central theme of getting people together. In this case, literally. The magical realism serves to push the 2-player characters forward, as Rose's childhood toys and games turn into actual obstacles for Cody and May. Every small argument or snippy comment becomes something they must overcome as a team through the magic of metaphor. Now, one of the main reasons why I really wanted to complete It Takes Two this year was because I was fortunate enough to interview Josef and play a few hours with him earlier this year. As the pandemic has stretched on and on and on and on, It Takes Two has become notable not only because it's a delight to play, but because of its deeper themes. Ask anyone who's been stuck in the same house with their partner for nearly the last 2 years. It can be really tough on everyone. And even though the tone of It Takes Two is sort of all over the place, something about the characters arguing with each other and then being reminded why they fell in love in the first place really struck a chord with me. It Takes Two was even recognized by the Game Awards this year in several categories, and though Josef would be the first to say that award shows are stupid, it's very cool to see a pure co-op game that takes big design swings among a bunch of single-player AAA titles. To me, it stands out because this is an incredibly cohesive game. It Takes Two's narrative is about a child's view of her parents' fractured relationship, but it is hardly a kid's game. Even though most of the action takes place inside exaggerated versions of household objects like a kaleidoscope or a tool shed, there is a lingering feeling that everything is a little messed up from the very beginning. The daughter, Rose, just wants her parents to fall back in love, but isn't aware of the full nature of their eternal struggles. The way this entire narrative is framed allows it to be both a fun fairy tale and a weirdly sharp look in how relationships can be sour. Amazingly, these concepts are reinforced at every turn through level design and game mechanics. Hazelight wanted people to connect and communicate as they played. Cody and May can only progress in the story by doing the same. From the very first few puzzles, where the couple carry a hammer and nail, it becomes clear that being observant and asking for help is key. Moving through these intricately designed spaces made me feel like I had been shrunken down and placed into an I Spy book. And if you don't know what an I Spy book is, you have a lot of research to do, folks. Cody and May's house, full of random stuff that couples collect over the years of living together, is suddenly being seen with fresh eyes. Everything has been painted over with a surreal brush, and that level design is brilliant. It Takes Two is divided into chapters, and within each chapter are a handful of unique gameplay segments, some that contribute towards completion, and some that are simply there because the developers wanted players to feel a sense of playfulness. Chapters are broken up by discrete gameplay mechanics that are only used for a few minutes at a time. Cody and May have a few core abilities for most of the playtime: a double jump, a dodge, a dash, and a rope swingy grapple thingy. But beyond that, moves and abilities are introduced and discarded at an incredible rate. Hazelight said they wanted to make a game they had never seen before, and overall, I think they nailed it. I found it impressive how each new mechanic could legitimately be a full game, but instead is just a small fragment of the whole piece. To go back to the hammer and nail, Cody can carry up to 3 recallable nails that serve to hold up platforms or provide points to swing off for May. These tools are the perfect introductory mechanics to help reinforce the idea that if players want to see the end, they've got to work together. But they disappear after an awesome boss fight against a rusty toolbox in favor of what are essentially 2 halves of a chemical weapon in the next section. This idea that new mechanics are used just long enough for players to get used to them and are then tossed out the window happens over and over and over again, and shows that Hazelight fully committed to the idea of that novelty. It Takes Two keeps up a great pace, and the constant focus of this new experience could feel like a distracting cop-out, but it isn't. That said, there are a couple of narrative and design decisions that I found, well, a little confusing. Now, I don't think they detract from my overall takeaway, but I do have to call out a couple of things that completionists might come across. So at the beginning of It Takes Two, it seems pretty clear why Cody and May want a divorce. It feels like they are a couple who have fallen out of love, a thing that does happen all the time to many people in their lives. Having a child complicates things. Cody is a stay-at-home father who has compromised a lot, and May is an incredibly hard-working breadwinner. The tension is right there on the surface, and easy for players of a certain age who are in relationships to identify with. For about 2/3 of It Takes Two, I was extremely on board with the writing and characters. Joseph has a distinct style and sense of humor that I really connect with. One of the first big bosses, a old vacuum cleaner, is defeated by Cody and May turning the suction arms towards the boss's face and sucking out its eyeballs until the entire thing explodes. It's really messed up. It was not what we were expecting at all during this. We had to dismantle our child's beloved doll as it begged us to stop. It was horrifying. In fact, most of the game, there is an undercut of darkness that reminded me of classic fairy tales or even movies like Labyrinth or Time Bandits. Sure, they are billed as family friendly or movies for kids, but really, there is just as much there for the adults in the audience as well. Even some of the trophies required us to send our characters to their deaths, like Thelma and Louising ourselves off of a ramp in a tiny car, or turning Cody into a speck of stardust by launching him off a seesaw. The magical talking relationship book Dr. Hakim, who may or may not be the cause of Cody and May being trapped inside dolls, has extremely sinister vibes. He's sort of like a Latin lover stereotype, all of his hip gyrations and raised eyebrows back and forth. From the moment Dr. Hakim first showed up, talking about forcing Cody and May to collaborate or be stuck forever, I was convinced that there would be some kind of third act twist where he was revealed to be the villain. And interestingly enough, It Takes Two doesn't go this route. We found the last chunk of It Takes Two to be both a surprising departure from what I thought it was setting itself up to be, and also being exactly what we expected it to be. Or maybe because the ending was exactly what we expected, it felt completely unexpected. Like, yes, there are some cliches established early on that I was totally sure would be subverted, only for the game to lean into some of those same cliches. Take the Snow Globe chapter. Cody and May find themselves ice skating and exploring a snowbound village. Turns out this chilly little town is inspired by the ski trip where Cody proposed to May, and being in this environment reminds the couple of what was so special about that proposal. There are some genuinely touching and well-written scenes here. Even though they're just dolls, both characters are really emotive and expressive, showing their longing and sadness for each other in a way that made me think that this relationship would need more than just a pep talk to be repaired. I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe this game is going to deal with the reality that sometimes relationships just can't be fixed, even if the couple truly loves each other and their child. But as the game goes on, that complexity is blurred and eventually dissipates. I'm not surprised per se. I'm not even necessarily disappointed. Turns out Dr. Hakim was never the secret villain or final boss like I thought he would be. Instead, his mantra that love conquers all turns out to be true. And Cody and May remember why they fell in love and remind each other of their forgotten passions, even if these reveals seem to come out of nowhere. Dr. Hakim has the couple's best interest at heart, and even if he seems like he's trying to undercut the couple on their journey to self-realization, he doesn't. He's like some kind of guiding force for good, even if he acts weird and aggressive. Now, minor spoilers for the ending of It Takes Two ahead, but again, if you've seen any amount of romantic comedy movies, you probably have some idea of what to expect here. I do appreciate that the story subverts a traditional Hollywood ending, and it doesn't exactly spell out whether or not Cody and May end up getting back together. But I think I anticipated just a little bit more nuance. Then again, it was kind of nice to just have a straightforward love story. I'll admit, I've seen my fair share of rom-coms. The proposal is actually good. Ray Fiennes in Made in Manhattan is stupidly attractive. Come at me, bros. So the fact that It Takes Two ends up going the more traditional rom-com route shouldn't come off as much of a surprise to me. Now, it's not a knock against the game. I think maybe that's why It Takes Two has resonated with people this year. Everyone loves a happy ending, even if they aren't always realistic. And frankly, I love this game actually manages to tell a cohesive story with an actual payoff. There's no obvious planning for a sequel, just a fully insulated project that was clearly planned out from start to finish. And looking at Josef's other games, they excel in depicting the surreal, and It Takes Two feels like a natural extension of that. And really, aren't romantic comedies one of the most surreal genres out there? It translates perfectly to this game, and even if the plot didn't end up blowing my mind, I still found it very satisfying. I had a similar experience with It Takes Two's 25 minigames. This game is not content to just throw new mechanics at the players throughout the main chapters. There are minigames sprinkled throughout this as well. There's a great variety here. Some stuff is simple, things I've seen in other games. Whack-a-Cody is basically whack-a-mole. And there are several different types of head-to-head races. There's even a minigame that is just dead-ass chess. Literally chess. You know, from the Queen's Gambit. But even though these minigames are mostly riffs on stuff I've seen before, I still enjoyed them. And that's one of the secrets of the romantic comedy genre. Yeah, the audience has probably seen it all before, but the way things are presented ends up mattering quite a bit. The mini games of It Takes Two succeed because Cody and May have cute banter that makes every game feel intimate and playful. Even if we have seen this all before, the way these games are presented makes them feel fun, even if they aren't original. Honestly, I think one of the reasons It Takes Two is such a success for me is that it uses the recognizable to create something original. By remixing and celebrating the familiar, It Takes Two has become its own classic. One of my favorite things about playing It Takes Two is seeing how Josef echoes and re-examines themes from his previous works. In my interview with him, which, hey, if you haven't watched it, please do. It's one of the best interviews I've ever done before. I do say so myself. Josef talks about how everyone at Hazelight is a fan of classic games and that It Takes Two serves as a love letter to game design. But he also has this sense of pride in his previous games that It Takes Two celebrates through Easter eggs and trophies. Completing It Takes Two gave me a glimpse into what Josef has been proud of throughout his career. And for me, this was hugely inspirational and reminded me of the passion that is necessary to pursue doing what you love.
So another reason I bring up this interview is that in conducting it, I found his pride both infectious and inspiring. This might sound weird, but meeting another Lebanese Arab who started in the world of film and found his way towards game development, it made me feel less alone as I started in film and ended up in the games industry as well. This is a feeling that not everyone will understand, but I felt real pride in seeing my people represented through Josef and Hazelight's triumphs. this interview also genuinely put me on the road to where I am today, and as a result of the interview piece, it ended up becoming one of my main audition pieces for G4. Seeing Josef give that "F the Oscar" speech and then playing It Takes Two with him not long after that made me feel like Lebanese Arabs were paving the way to the future in games. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's how I feel.
Josef's achievements, especially in It Takes Two, prove creativity can exist across cultural mediums. A Lebanese Arab and a Swedish studio made a game that is being hailed as one of the best of the year all over the world. And Josef's success isn't just limited to him. It's a victory for anyone who's played this game with a partner new to co-op. It Takes Two is extremely self-aware, and fans of video games will recognize some amazing references to classic games. Sharing that knowledge with someone new is a way to create a bridge to new understanding. And I honestly love that Josef references not only A Way Out with one trophy, but actually includes himself in the game. In one area, we could climb a stack of pillows and tune an antenna to listen to different conversations. One of those conversations is a clip of the creator himself slamming the Oscars in that well-known speech. It's rad to hear, and another example of pride in the finished product. The fact that It Takes Two cannot be completed without hearing from the man who created it puts the focus back on the developers. Now, I've said this a million times, how the game constantly introduces new mechanics, but the sheer delight I felt seeing the game shift into something familiar was unparalleled. A fighting game segment that comes out of nowhere, and it lasts just long enough to not overstay its welcome. There are references to Gauntlet, Mario Kart, Dance Dance Revolution, even The Legend of Zelda. The game draws attention to these references not to make players roll their eyes, but because the studio loves games and wants to share that love and pride and passion with anyone who picks up a controller. The awareness of every design choice reads to me as excitement on Hazelight's part, but it never feels distracting. Even the aforementioned fighting game portion doesn't feel distracting because two players have a role to fulfill. My partner may be the one battling the squirrel on top of a plane, but I still had something to do. The developers recognized that taking the controller away from the player would be boring and unfun, so I still had to steer that plane. Knowing about game culture helped Hazelight create a game where nearly every moment is fulfilling for both players, which is an incredible feat here. Letting both players get a chance to shine throughout our 11-ish hours of playtime is maybe the smartest and most understated design choice of It Takes Two. Everyone plays a little differently, but everyone wants to feel awesome at some point, and this delivers that feeling consistently. We didn't even have to wait around for each other, and even the most complicated puzzles never stumped us for too long. And because we never had to wait around for each other, it felt more fun to explore areas together. Even the most difficult platforming section, which is a single area in the cuckoo clock called Hell Tower, we decided to climb it together in solidarity. The game feels like there's constantly this give and take to progression that will make any couple playing this game feel smart and like they're having fun together. I think the game's best sequences are in that cuckoo clock. We were always doing something together and never had a dull moment. Every action felt necessary, like we were trading a tool back and forth. Every set piece feels epic, looks incredible, and sounds phenomenal. This chapter occurs right at the turning point in the story, and Pat and I actually found ourselves rooting for our player characters in a way that we hadn't been up until that point. It Takes Two pulls out all the stops around here. I could feel the love, the passion pouring out from this labor of love of the game. From the outset of It Takes Two, the question always was whether or not this game would deliver on its premise. A fully co-op game where two players would feel fulfilled upon completing it. And that would seem impossible. And of course, for us completionists, It Takes Two lacks the traditional completion bonuses there. However, we both had a fantastic time. Earning all 21 trophies was an instant snap, and it was possible to do so in only one playthrough. There really is something here for everyone, from people who play games for a living to those who just want to explore a really well-designed world. Hazelight purposely made the completion process relatively simple, but that doesn't mean doing so isn't satisfying.
It Takes Two reminded me of what it takes to be a trailblazer in this industry. Josef Fares and Hazelight pulled out all the stops for this game. It's funny, it's fun, it's therapeutic, and sharing it with another person is a wonderful way to share that love and passion that goes into creating games with a loved one. Completing this game with another person feels necessary, especially in this weird, crazy time when everyone is just cut off from each other. It Takes Two wants to bring people together, and I genuinely think that is beautiful. Whether you've been playing games for a long time or you were introduced to them recently, It Takes Two wants to meet you there. Completing it is well within the grasp of anyone, especially if you have a partner by your side willing to go that extra distance. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of complete it.
Complete it!